we're moving along, so I think we can have that examined, in a week and we'll have another week and a half, we'll be okay. And we'll just write about what we're talking about here. You'll be able to hold forth. You can bring in your Bibles, you can bring in some note cards, you can, I prefer you not bring in who wrote the Bible, because then you'll start copying whole sections out of that, and that I just don't think is a good thing to do, so. Just going to bring in the Bible and note cards. Not all your notes from your notebooks, because just reducing the, 5 or 10 note cards, things you don't want to forget. Let's move along here. So, we've done that Yahweh story, and based on the Hebrew word levavel, to confuse, and the enjoyment that the one storyteller, the Yahweh, seems to get out of telling stories about people's names. Now, these are Shem's descendants, as I said, back to the priesthood. You can see it immediately, even in English. And we can see from the style, the repetitive, ceremonial, officious, seem to be like an incantation of some kind. When Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Raxbad 2 years after the flood. After the flood, after the birth of Raxbad, Shem lived 500 years, became the father of sons and daughters. No information about the sons and daughters. No information even about Raxbad's wife. I mean, we assume all these guys are fertile and have children easily, and all their wives are fine in this regard. None of them are bachelors or anything like that. And none of them are gay, and so on. I don't mean to be cruel there, but that's what I'm saying. It's all very laid out. And I'm sure that's probably early life was probably pretty much like that. But I mean, if this fellow knows so much, why doesn't he tell us the name of the wives or the other children? He's only interested in one thing, isn't he? The genealogy down to him. And that's why we call this priesthood. He wants to verify his genealogy. Look at the New Testament. Is the New Testament interested in anything but Jesus' genealogy back to Abraham and so on? No, not really. Here's the genealogy of Jesus, bam, right down to him. 2 different versions, by the way. One in Luke, I think, and the other in Matthew, and they don't agree. But that's not important. The point is, here's the genealogy, and that's what we're going to want to prove his legitimacy. That he's a real son of David. These people want to prove their legitimacy the same way. And that's why the scholars have decided to call this priesthood. I'm not interested in anything else except the names that come down to them. And they even did a little bit of sleight of hand when they slid Seth in for Cain, even though he later appeared as Canaan. They did a little sleight of hand because they didn't obviously like the murderous part of the material associated with Cain, lest someone impugn their genealogy on that basis. Raxbad was 35 years old, and he became the father of Shelah, and Shelah, after that, Raxbad lived 403 years. I don't know where they get the numbers from, but notice they are diminishing. We don't have the 9 and 800s that we had in the previous ones. We're getting down to more human lifespans, and they're starting, most of them are about 30 when they have their children, as we noticed. Shelah's 30, Eber's 34, Peleg's 30, Ru's 32, Serug is 30, Nahor's 29. But the others, 403 for Shelah, Eber 430, Peleg 209, Ru 207, Serug 200, Nahor 119, and Terah, well, he's 70 years old when he becomes the father of Abraham. He breaks, and the others are all 30, but I have no idea where I got these numbers from. Now you say, well, they may be true, right? I would really be very much surprised if they have any precise information of this kind. I mean, you and I don't even have it, or in a computer age much. So. Tell me, how old was your grandfather when he had his first child? You know. Okay. Your great-grandfather? Okay, I got you there. And how about your grandfather on your mother's side? How old was he? Oh, you're too smart.
But I don't know my great-grandfather.
No fair, no fair, no fair. Okay, you're obviously interested in genealogy. Or your grandparents are quite young, one of the two. I don't even think I ever saw my grandparents. They were quite old and when they had their first children, and my parents were pretty old when they had their children, so I never saw my grandparents. I don't even know what they looked like, except for pictures. And I'm not liable to see my grandchildren, I can tell you that. I haven't seen any yet, and I doubt I'm going to see very many of them, so there you go. Now, this is another of those genealogies, and you want to link it up, I'm sure you'll see now. It's not like the Yawist, helter-skelter one we just had about all the different families, but it links up with chapter 5. You see the link up there, I think. Chapter 5:1. This is the roll of Adam's descendants. Exactly the same style, clearly part of the same document originally. That went from 5:1 all the way down to Methuselah and down to Noah to 5:32. This one goes from 10:11 down to 10:26. I don't want to read the whole thing. We know how they work by now. And who are we getting to? The big guy, Abraham. That's where we want to get, and that's what we've got. So we're finally down to Abraham. One thing I should point out, notice line 16, Eber. We've heard about him in the other genealogy, the Yawist one. Notice he's how many generations back? There's Terah, Nahor, Serug, Reu. Eber's around 5 or 6 generations back. That's quite a long ways back to say that all these people, his descendants, are Hebrews. But often in Arab tribal situations, like for instance Muhammad. Muhammad's tribe or clan or group. Well, see, it's his clan within the tribe, so that does work because probably the tribe goes further back. But the clan within the tribe are called the Hashemites. And I don't know if you've ever heard the Kingdom of Jordan. We hear about the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and we hear about the Hashemite King of Jordan. Why are they called the Hashemites? Because they're claiming to be of the prophet's family. And they take it back to the prophet's grandfather, Hashem. So therefore, when you want to be somebody who's related to someone else, you've got to go back a few generations to include all the aunts, uncles, cousins, and everything else. So when you're talking about someone in his tribe or his clan or whatever, you go back some generation, you say the sons, Muhammad belongs to the sons of Hashem. He's a Hashemite because his grandfather is called Hashem, and there we get the cousins, aunts, brothers, uncles, and everyone else in under the line. Here we've gone back several to get to Eber to get all the Hebrews. But I mean, that's how it's usually done in any case. Serug, for instance, line 23. Serug is a known area of Mesopotamia. And often the names of people are either confused with or identified with the name of a town or place. So, for instance, here, Terah's grandfather is called what? Nahor. No, Terah's father is called Nahor. Right? So then he becomes the father of Abraham. And then we get, these are Terah's descendants. Now it looks like we've switched over in line 27, even though 27 looked priestly. Suddenly in 27, second part of it, looks like we are getting more Yahwist in its the way it's sort of all jumbled up. Anyway, Terah became the father of Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Not just Nahor and Haran. So we have a repeat there. Haran became the father of Lot. We know about Lot. He's going to appear in the Abraham stories. Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in his native land, Ur of the Chaldeans. But you know, Haran, even today, is a city in northern Syria. Abraham and Nahor both married. Abraham's wife was called Sarai. Later she'll be called Sarah. They get name changes when they get chosen by God. Abraham becomes Abraham, Sarai becomes Sarah, just like the Pope. Nahor's wife was called Milcah, the daughter of Haran. So he married his, let's see, he married his first cousin, is it? Or niece? Niece, right? Niece, yeah. Of Milk and father of Milk, and Sarai was barren as usual and has no child. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law, the wife of Abram, and made them leave Ur, which is somewhere near Baghdad, and go to the land of Canaan. But before they went there, they went up to Haran, which is in northern Syria, and they settled there. Terah's life is a shorter one, 205 years. Then he died at Haran. So they're from northern Syria, really. I don't know about this middle Mesopotamian origin in the Ur of the Babylonians, Chaldeans or Babylonians. Anyway, that little bit, 27 to 32, is pretty Yahwist in its appearance. Now 12 is the first Abram story, official Abram story, and it's Yahwist. The Lord, or Yahweh, said to Abram, leave your country, your family, your father's house for the land I will show you, and I'll make you a great nation. I'll bless you and make your name so famous that it will be used as a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, I'll curse those who curse you, and all the tribes of the earth shall bless themselves by you. Christianity and Islam both agree with that. So Abraham went as Yahweh told him, and Lot went with him. So his nephew went with him. Abraham was 75 years old when he left Haran. I would probably doubt that. If these stories have any accuracy, he was probably in his 30s or something. Guy's 70 years old, don't do much traveling anymore on camels and stuff. Don't do much hiking either. In any case, he took his wife Sarah and all the things that they had acquired in Haran. So there. Haran is both the name of one of his ancestors, and it's also the name of the city. That's what I was telling you about. Haran sometimes is who's Haran? He's a brother of Abraham, but is also a town. When they arrived in Haran, they settled there, line 31, and then here when he took everything he acquired in Haran. So it's a town, and it's also a cousin or a brother. One other thing, and Lot, by the way, isn't Lot the son of Haran? Or is he the son of Nahor? What did he say? No, he's son of Haran. So this is getting more distinct, not as unclear as the previous materials. Now we've since found some materials in a place in Syria called Ebla. Before that, the Syrians called it, I think, Tel Mardik. Tel means hill, so Ebla. And we found a lot of tablets there. This is on the way up to Haran from Damascus. And I haven't heard much about it recently because I think the Syrian government has pulled the lid over it. They don't like what they're hearing there. And there's a lot of material there with Hebrew type names and other things that came to light. This was very big news in the 60s and 70s, but it's since been put under wraps because I don't think the Arabs liked the idea that there were Hebrew connections to towns right in the middle of Syria, and they've put a kind of blanket over this place and information about it. I haven't heard much about it recently, but there were a lot of texts that came out of Ebla which showed that there were a lot of these Hebrew type names, including, I think, Jacob and some other names that appear in the Bible that are known in their text to some extent, which was confirming that such kinds of people did exist from that period. But now the interesting thing is that these texts are from around 2500 to about 2000 BC. 25, maybe they go down even to 1600, but I think they're 2500 to 2000 if my memory serves me correctly. So scholars, even before these texts, were putting this here around the 2000 period. I think we're talking about 2400 BC period for some of this information in terms of the world it reflects. But coming down from northern Syria, coming through places, Ebla would have been on the way. I was in Syria about, 10 years ago or so, maybe less. And I took a car. I almost got killed by the driver who wanted more money than I was prepared to give him. But I took a car from Damascus, and that's the only way to do things there. You have to rent cars with drivers. You can't drive yourself because you get killed or something bad will happen. You can't just go rent a car and drive around the country. Anyway, driver protects you too, so that's good. I took a car and I drove up to Ebla from Damascus. And I was on my way up to Aleppo, which is on the way up to where Haran is, further north from Aleppo. So all these places were interesting, but Ebla certainly is on the road down from Haran into Palestine. I could draw one of my hard maps, but I'm not sure if any much would come of it. I'm not sure I can do. This is the Tigris and Euphrates. This is the Mediterranean. This is Turkey over here. This would be Syria here, sort of. And this is Iraq and Jordan and Palestine and so on. Not very good. But the point is that Haran now is here, somewhere on the Syrian-Turkish border. It's right off the Euphrates River. There's Euphrates. Not far from the Euphrates. Euphrates comes around like that. And Ebla would be about here. Aleppo would be about here. So, you see, this is what's meant by the Fertile Crescent. You hear about the Fertile Crescent? Why is it fertile? Because these are all mountains here. Those are all mountains. Rain comes down and waters this sort of valley, which is really in the form of a crescent. Over here, you're in desert. So when people go, they go along the Fertile Crescent, which is really the back of the mountains where the water is draining down into the more flattish plain area. And as it gets further out, it gets more deserty. So if you were traveling, you'd stick close to the, not the base of the mountains, but, the area that's being drained by the water coming down from the hills and mountains. Because you have to go through mountains to get over to the Mediterranean, and there's big mountains in southern Turkey here. So this is where the fertile area is. And that's where people have gone. So Ebla would have been right on the route. You got me? So, there's some evidence to back up some of this kind of material. Good topic for a paper if you're really wanting to get into it. But it takes some research. Okay. So, Yahweh's story. Abram did as Yahweh told him. Lot went with him. Abram was 75 when he left Haran. Abram took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, a lot of repetition here, all their possessions, and that's, I suppose there's some repetition because maybe we're getting, again, more stitching here, but I can't tell you what the different lines are. And they set off from the land of Canaan and arrived there. Abram passed through the land as far as Shechem's holy place, the oak of Moreh. And at that time the Canaanites were in the land. We know who the Canaanites are now from the genealogy, all different tribes of Canaanites. And Yahweh appeared to Abram and said, "It is to your descendants that I will give this land." So Abram built an altar there for Yahweh who had appeared to him. Now, further down here, I have a little note. Chapter 13. I don't know if if this is similar, but he's on 18, he's at the Oak of Mamre, not the Oak of Moreh, 13:18. And there's another promise made at the Oak of Mamre, also about his descendants. I will make your descendants like the dust of the ground, 16. And I will give you the whole land. This is what's being fought over in Palestine at the moment, and the Israelis are on the retreat because of all the international pressure that's been applied to them for the last 20 or 30 years. I have to be frank. Why one should keep pressuring these poor people who just escaped from concentration camps only 40, 50 years ago is beyond me. And why one needs 23 Arab kingdoms and the only little Jewish place in the world is constantly being squeezed to make another Arab kingdom is beyond me. But I don't try to figure out what makes the world think, what the world thinks is fair. I frankly can't understand this concept of fairness, because there's no fairness in it, and how they get to the point where they feel that they should be pressuring someone over some claim someone else is making, when there's already 22 other states for those people, and they could easily be absorbing them if they chose to, but they don't choose to. Plus they have the finances to absorb them, but they don't choose to apply them. And they want the Americans to do all the bailing of people out. In the meantime, American oil prices are skyrocketing, and the Americans sit here basically accepting this whole situation that they're presented with. And again, I fail to understand it. I will leave it like that, but these are the passages that are being argued about, these promises made to Abraham. And the people who don't want a state of Israel to be of any size or magnitude don't like these promises. Feel that you shouldn't pay any attention to them. The people who do care about the state of Israel refer to these promises, including religious Jews and religious Christians. That's all I'll say about that subject, sensitive subject. But anyway, these are the promises that are causing the political problems at the moment. And at the moment, the world is backing non-observance of any of these promises. So, to your descendants I give this land. Notice, I want you to keep track of the altars Abraham built. He built an altar to Yahweh in line 8. I think down here he'll also build another altar. Line 18. At the Oak of Mamre he'll build another altar. Also, these are holy sites. These are shrines. All the towns along the way seem to have their shrines. Usually a holy tree of some kind. Some sort of glade, an oak or something like this, obviously. But what's the difference between the Oak of Mamre, I ask, and the Oak of Moreh? I have no idea, and I'm not even sure they're not confused. Except that one is in Shechem, which is in the north, and becomes the future capital of the north. I'll leave my beautiful map on there for tomorrow's class. And I'll draw another map. So, since we're coming down into Palestine, here we go. This is the Mediterranean Sea here. I guess I should have. This is Jordan over here, or whatever. It's not good now, but anyway. This is Syria, Lebanon. So, Abraham's coming down like this. And look, if he comes down from that way, I don't know. Haran. And then he gets down here. This is Galilee. He wouldn't have come this way. He'd have come probably through Damascus and then across over to here, because this is too mountainous to come down the way I'm showing it to you. He'd have stayed on the Fertile Crescent side of the mountains, you see, and then he'd have crossed in where he could have. But anyway, they live in that. So then he gets down to this place, Shechem. Then he goes further south. He doesn't even mention this place, Jerusalem. He keeps going further south here. Hebron. These are all places being fought over today. Okay? You can look at a better map than this. Yeah, I'm saying there's plenty of maps. And, but I'm giving you a rough, they're all the same, basically. This is sequence of places. So, he builds an altar here, don't forget, altar to Yahweh here, and he builds an altar to Yahweh here. These are quite a distance apart. There are Jews, by the way, in Hebron today, who don't want to leave that place. And they're holding out real tough there because of it's Abraham's city, and they don't. There was a shrine here in Shechem that the Arabs demolished about 2 or 3 years ago on television because it was the grave of Joseph's tomb. Joseph was buried up there according to the book of Genesis, and there's a tomb and a shrine there in honor, and I don't know if you saw the pictures, they were on top of it with sledgehammers. Nobody protested, nobody bothered that they do that kind of thing. And that's just the way, to me, that's the inequality of the way things are looked at. One group of people, because nothing's expected of them, can get away with everything. And another group of people who everything's expected of, get away with almost nothing. And yet are blamed for everything. So that's the personal view that I have of that situation. And you can read between the lines and figure out why or what I feel like. But in any case, Shechem ultimately turned out to be the capital of the northern kingdom. Today it's called Nablus. The reason it's called Nablus today is because there's no P in Arabic, there's a B. And after a long period of time, when the Greeks finally got a hold of this area and the Romans, they built a new city on top of the old city of Shechem. And they called that Neapolis. Neapolis in Greek means new polis, new city. Naples is also Neapolis. All these places have a Greek name to them, have a Greek root. And so Nablus was the Arabic approximation of Neapolis. Neapolis, Neapolis, Nablus. That's how oral speech goes. Same as Istanbul. Constantinople, there's no P, remember, has to go to B. Constantinople, Istanbul, Istanbul. That's how it gets. And there you are, Istanbul. So, Constantinople moves into Istanbul, Neapolis moves into Nablus. The way speech works. So, the first place he visits, nothing much happens according to Yahweh. So I think these are mainly stories that the Yahweh has taken from the shrines themselves. I think the Yahweh has gone to visit all these different shrines, and like all places, the guy who's keeping it, either the gatekeeper or the tourist guide or the guy hanging around there, the guy who wants money or whatever, you come there. Suppose you're the journalist or you're the writer, you come there. Hey, come on, me, I'll show you the shrine. So here's our altar here. You know who founded this altar? Abraham. Abraham founded this altar. All of our people. Okay, I get you. Next guy, go down to another place, Hebron. Go visit that shrine. Come here. I'll take you around here. See the shrine over here? See that tree? That's where Abraham stopped. And see that altar? That altar was put down there by Abraham. Muhammad does the same thing in the Quran, doesn't he? What's he saying? Even though it's almost impossible to even conceive of it, and all Muslims today in the world believe it. The Kaaba, the shrine in Mecca. Who put that down? Who founded that shrine? Oh, Abraham put that down. That's Abraham's shrine. That's a shrine of monotheism, even though it's got a pagan black stone in the middle of it. It was a pretty Islamic pagan shrine. But anyway, it's attributed to Abraham. Probably even though Abraham never been God into the Arabian Peninsula. But it doesn't matter. That's how these things develop. And so did Abraham found all these shrines? I don't think so. I don't even think he founded these shrines here. But that's what the shrine people are telling the writer, like tourist guides. So I think you have to read backwards. That's how this material comes to be. The shrines are keeping these traditions alive. Abraham founded our shrine. Founded it on the way down when he first came into Palestine, when he was coming from northern Syria. He stopped here and he put a stone down here, and he worshipped here, and that's what happened. So, here's the first one. So Abram built an altar to Yahweh, line 8, because Yahweh had appeared to him there. And then, so the shrine will say, look, this is where God appeared and promised Abraham that he was going to give him the land. In fact, this is where God promised Abraham that his descendants would inherit this land. That's what happened at this shrine. You better realize how important this shrine is. Anyway, he kept on moving east of Bethel. Bethel, as we'll read in Amos later on, one of the early prophets, is the official royal shrine of the north. Bethel, actually the northern kingdom, we haven't gotten there yet, but we will. The northern kingdom split away from the southern kingdom sometime after the death of David and Solomon. But in any case, Bethel means, guess what? House of God. In Hebrew, Beit El. Beit El. Bayit is house, El is God. Beit El. Beit Allah, if you prefer. Beit Elah. Beit El. House of God. We call it Bethel. Bethel. Anyway, this is west of Ai. We're going to hear about in the Joshua stories and the conquests. Remember that. Ai is one of these towns near Bethel, north of Jerusalem. And there he not only built an altar, he invoked the name of Yahweh. So who was the first to invoke the name of Yahweh? We heard it in one of the genealogies. And he was the first to invoke the name Yahweh. Was it Enoch or something like that? Enoch? Huh? One of those. Well, this is the second time, okay? See if you can keep track and remember these things. So the second one to invoke the name of Yahweh is Abram. Enoch, then Abram. So he goes down to the, stage by stage, down to the Negev, or Negeb. What do you have, Negev or Negeb? It should be Negev, N-E-G-E-V, that's what it's called today. That's the southern Israeli desert, the area next to Sinai, above basically the Red Sea. So that's what the Beersheba, Hebron are at the top of that. So more of the Negev. Okay. There was a famine, and Abraham went down to Egypt. Now, watch this story. We finished that Yahweh line, Abraham got to the Negev, right? End that business. So now we have another little snippet. Line, it's just tough to explain all this, but 12:10 to 12:20. This is another story, just like the Lot story, rather, just like the Canaan and the Ham and Japheth and so on. Not a very nice story about Abraham. In other words, these people are not heroic. Noah was a drunkard, Abraham's a coward. Because the storyteller is not interested to portray superhuman beings. What he wants to do is tell you a story about people that is interesting, that reflects the time and place that these people live. And I think he succeeds in doing that. He tells you good stories that are reflective of, not telling you like Greek gods and goddesses stories. Telling you human interest stories that reflect the time and place of where he lived. What's this story about? Well, it's really about how there's a famine, he has to go south to Egypt, and one of these are several trips that they take down to Egypt. And Sarah is so beautiful that her beauty is reported to Pharaoh through the officials. So Pharaoh took her into his palace. Obviously, he's got lots of wives. He took her in there too. And he treated Abraham well because of her. Because Abraham earlier, before he went into Egypt, he said to his wife, listen to what he told her. Look, you're a beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they'll say, hey, look at that guy's wife. And then they'll kill me and spare you. So therefore, look, tell them you're my sister, so that they'll treat me well because of you and spare my life out of regard for you. Is this showing Abraham to be very heroic? He's just trying to save his skin. He doesn't care if someone uses his wife, right? As long as he survives, which is okay. I can sympathize with him, actually. I think if you, man and women, if you loved your husband and you were given the choice, look, your husband's a dead man, or you're gonna have to go in there and play ball with these people in the palace, for the time being, you'd probably agree to go in there and play ball rather than get your husband killed. Because they'd take you anyway, so you wouldn't gain anything from getting your husband killed, they'd still take you. Right? So, but it just doesn't look like a very nice story about the father of the Hebrew people. That basically he's selling his wife. Not only is he selling his wife, look! He treats Abraham well because of her. He gets flocks, oxen, donkeys. He's having a good time with her in there. He likes it. Donkeys, men, women, slaves, she-donkeys, camels. There's the anachronism that I might have mentioned to you, that we're not sure camels were domesticated at that time. People say camels weren't domesticated until 1000 BC. I'm not sure that's true or not, but they think that the Hebrews only had donkeys. That's one of the theories that Albright, one of the famous American archaeologists of the previous century, circulated, that basically the difference between Arabs and Hebrews are that the Hebrews were donkey people and the Arabs are camel people. That's not to say that donkeys are such a bad animal. The point is donkeys need more water than camels, and since they were carabiners and tradesmen, and therefore they had to stick close to the water sites, because a donkey can't go without water probably for more than a day, whereas a camel makes it possible to go in the deep desert. And the only way that you can go in the deep desert is with a camel, but you would have to wait till camels were domesticated. Their theory is there's no evidence from Egyptian inscriptions or other information that camels came into use in a domesticated way before around 1000 BC. To my mind, that's a really stupid theory, but that's the evidence shows that. I can't imagine people didn't domesticate camels long before that, but that's what the evidence is. They claim the evidence suggests. So that on that evidence, they say this is an anachronism, that he couldn't have had camels at this time, because this is around 2000 BC. So, you know, the picture that Abraham is the first Arab is wrong. Arabs depend on camels. Hebrews are only caravanning near the water areas with donkeys and other similar beasts of burden. Notice how just in the Moses story, Yahweh inflicts plagues on Pharaoh. So there's even an echo here, or a foretaste, or a suggestion of the plagues of Egypt in the Exodus story. It's not developed like it is in the Exodus story, right? It doesn't turn into the Passover, but there's a suggestion. So he tortures him because of what he's doing to Abraham's wife. So he's obviously been sleeping with her. Let's put it bluntly. There's no way of getting around this. So Pharaoh summoned Abraham and said, "What is this you have done to me?" The same as Cain, the same as Ham with his father Noah. "What did he do to me? What have you done to me? You let me sleep with your wife, and I didn't know she was your wife, and now you've brought all this curse of God horror on me. You know, you've really been not square with me. Why did you say she's my sister? So I took her to be my wife." See, I took her. He says, "Here, take your wife." And Pharaoh permitted men to escort him back to the frontier with his wife and everything he possessed.
It says I might have taken her.
Well, that's an English. That's your editor probably doesn't want you to think that he took her. He took her. Sorry about that, but he took her. But I'll give you the next story where he might have taken her. That's the whole point. Put your finger in the slot there. I hate to go way ahead, but we'll go ahead. And there are two more stories like this, which are basically just a spin-off of this story from other source lines. Other source lines because our writer has stitched them together again. The first one, or the second one if you like, is on chapter 20. But my Bible's so good because I've got these things all titled here. I can find them in a minute. You can't find them that quick without a good titled Bible if you don't have a Bible with good titles in it. Some of you I see are getting them, and I congratulate you for having gotten them. They're worth having. This is 21, Abraham at Gerar. That's a Philistine city now, not in Sinai, but not in Egypt, but it's the same story. This, the first one looks like it was a Yahwist one. This is looks like it's an Elohist. It uses the name of God instead of Yahweh. Abraham left that land of the Negev. The Negev is involved in the story, as you see. Settled with Kadesh and Sinur. So I'm going to note that the Negev is in both stories. In both stories, something I never noticed before. Settled before Kadesh and Shur, and stayed there at Gerar. And his wife Sarah, she's called Sarah by this time, Abraham said, "She is my sister." Doing the same trick again. And Abimelech, not the Pharaoh, king of Gerar, had Sarah brought to him. Now this story is different. Before he can get her in the house and live with her for almost a year and reward Abraham with all kinds of gifts because of what he was doing in the house with her. If I can be crude, will you allow me to be crude? Anyone object too strenuously? Now the guy's more Puritan who is writing this. God visited Abimelech in a dream at night and warned him. This is not as good a story, by the way. The Puritanism of this story has gotten in the way of the great plot of the other story, hasn't it? Once again, the Yahwist is the great storyteller. These people are second-rate rip-off artists. These are the Hollywood rewrite specialists who take the good old Hollywood movies and turn them into modern rubbish movies. Here's the next version of this. Deferring, as the Elohist and others in the Seth story do, to more puritanical mindsets of the audience they're appealing to. Like this gentleman here, his Bible didn't want to say that they're sure that they cohabited. We had to say, I might have done something, not that I did do something. Because the translator there is worried about this whole issue. But it's clear from the first story that something transpired, just as it's clear that in the Canaan story, something transpired. He did something. He says, what I did. So something happened. Here, it's the might have done story. Okay, so look. He had a dream. God says, you're to die. Because this woman you've taken, she's a married woman. You're going to catch hell for this. And then the writer wants it clear what he's worried about, doesn't he? And Abimelech, though, had not yet gone near her. We've saved Sarah's virtue. We saved Sarah's honor. The Hebrews are not descended from a woman who played the harlot with some foreign king. We're in good shape. We're safe. But it's not as good a story, is it? Not half as good. Is it any different than the other story? Nah, it's the same story. They've just put different characters in it. And they made it go a slightly different way. My Lord, would you kill innocent people too? Did he not tell me himself she's my sister? Abimelech speaking to God now, not Abraham. And did not she herself say, he's my brother? I did this with a clean hand. My conscience is clear. Yes, I know, God said, in a dream. You didn't do, your conscience clear. I prevented you from sinning against me. That's why I didn't let you touch her. This story is getting worse and worse. Pardon me for being crude. I just want to show you the difference in the writers here. I don't mean to be cruel about it. It's not a bad story. But compared to the other story, it's third rate, isn't it? The other story has got all the punch, and this is basically just justifying. Oh, it's not a bad original story, but this writer has ruined it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The stories are basically the same. Now send the man's wife back, for he's a prophet and can intercede on your behalf for your life. But understand, if you don't send her back, you're going to die and all your people too. And Abimelech rose up next morning and summoned all his servants and told them the whole story, which the men were really afraid. And they summoned Abraham, and then they say the same thing. What have you done to us? So he's fixed that story. this writer has fixed that story. Put it under a different name, but it's fixed the story. What wrong have I done you that you bring great sin on me? You've treated me as you should not have done. And Abimelech asked Abraham, what possessed you to do this? So this is an Elohist story, one of the first ones. Not a genealogy like the priestly ones, or this is an actual writing of the I think it's an Elohist. I think it is. Maybe it's a second Yahweh story. I'm not sure. But no, it is an Elohist. It's all God all the way through. And you see, the Elohist writer is not as good as the Yahwist writer. Not as effective. It's very wordy, a lot of chatter, doesn't get to the point quick, it doesn't draw its morals quickly, it discusses everything in endless detail. Well, I can't read the rest of it, but anyway, the same thing happens. Abimelech takes sheep, cattle, men, women, slaves, presented them to Abraham, gave him back his wife Sarah. Hey, look, is there any difference between the story and the first? Come on, let's be honest. Who's it who has the mother who is very Bible-oriented? Is it you? Who is the person that was in the class that has that took the class so they could talk to their mother about this material? Anyway, she seems to have evaporated. But whoever that person was, show these two stories to your mother and see what they say about this. And I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. I like the Bible, as you know. But let's be frank. This is a repetition. And a different fellow writing basically the same material, and his object is make sure nothing happened here between these two people. But the same effect is Abraham gets rich and goes away with lots of gifts. But now Abraham's even better here. He can pray and get Abimelech healed. And now this seems to be a Yahwist bit of material that's floated in here. And there may have been a Yahwist story that this has superimposed upon. For Yahweh made all the women of Abimelech's household barren on account of Sarah, Abraham's wife. We didn't hear that detail before. So that seems to be a throwaway line from another story that he's put in here. Yeah.
You have a very strong argument. I cannot deny that.
That's not an argument, it's just pointing out something.
However, when I look at it, it could just be that Abraham is repeating the same sin or lie he did before. It worked before.
Okay.
He could just be following the same sin he did before.
Anyway, it's not an argument on my part, it's just pointing this out,
Yeah.
the resemblance. I'm not trying to argue that one's, yes, that's a possibility. The academic storyline people with their different, use their theory to say this is the reason for it. Do you prefer a more homogeneous, biblical, looking in a more homogeneous manner? That's the only other explanation you could make, the one you're making. Which, if you feel it's satisfying, that's fine. However, you're stuck with a third story in 26. This one is unfortunately not Abraham this time. So 2 out of the 3 elements are there. The sister element, now it's Gerar, and it's Isaac. The other story, 2 out of 3 elements were there. The sister element, Abraham, but instead of Pharaoh, it was Gerar. So this is the third variation on the theme. We call these, I think, variations on the theme. This is really, I think, I'm not mistaken, another Elohist story. I'm not a great expert on sorting it all out, and I don't think it really matters by this time. We get the idea of the theory. We don't have to keep beating the horse. Who wrote the Bible will give you that. Let's look at this one. There was a famine in the land. Oh, tell me something new. Sorry. Second one, after the famine which took place in the time of Abraham. Some editor has caught this guy with his hand in the cookie jar and has added that little bit there. Just so you realize it's not the same story. And Isaac went to Abimelech, the Philistine king at Gerar. This is a totally absurd story because the Philistines hadn't even come into the country yet. At least the other story about Gerar doesn't call him a Philistine. The Philistines didn't, we know for a fact, we know the peoples of the sea, we know when they came in around 1200 BC. We know when the wars with the Philistines began around 1100, 1000, and we know when they finished around, 800 or 900 or so. But there were no Philistines in the country at the time of Abraham. So this is a much later story, written by someone who knew Philistines. That means after 1100 BC. Again, probably in the Davidic period or thereafter. Again, your arguments, my friend there, can stand up only to a point when you get into these anachronisms. Then you're in serious trouble. I don't want to, I'm not trying to gainsay you. I'm just saying the evidence becomes too difficult to deal with to get the homogeneous version of all this. But you can do it if you want. You're a free person. You're free to do that. Isaac went to Abimelech, the Philistine king. Yahweh, it's a Yahweh, second Yahweh. Yahweh had appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt. So he didn't go down to Egypt. He stayed in Palestine. Remain in this land, and I will be there to bless you, and I will fulfill the oath I swore to your father Abraham, and I will make your descendants as many of the stars of heaven. We've had that in the promises of the shrines. I'm hurrying so I can get back to the Abraham story. I just want to show you this story here because I know you don't read this stuff as carefully as me because you'd have already picked it out and told me about it if you did. First, it's to you and the descendants I will give all these lands. I will fulfill my oath I swore to your father Abraham. I'll make your descendants as many of the stars of heaven. I will give them all these lands, and all the nations of the world shall bless themselves by your descendants in return for Abraham's obedience, for he kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my laws. Well, okay, we've heard all that. So Isaac stayed at Gerar, didn't go down to Egypt. God talked him out of going down to Egypt. When the people of the place asked him about his wife, he replied, she is my sister. Same story, third time. Okay, it worked twice. In your view, it'll work third time. For he was afraid to say she is my wife in case they killed him on Rebekah's account, for she was beautiful. Now, this is the same story. It's just the characters of it. It's like, this happens up in Hollywood all the time. Just go up there and take a look at how the scriptwriters work. People don't realize we had scriptwriters in 1000 BC, not just in 2080. In 1000 BC, pardon. Let's see. When he had been there for some time, Abimelech, the Philistine king, happened to look out the window, just like Pharaoh had done. And he saw Isaac, pardon me. This is different. Here's the different element here. The first story, Pharaoh gets reported that Sarah is beautiful and takes her right into his palace, no messing about. The second story, she gets into the palace, but God makes him have a dream. So nothing happens to her. The third story, she doesn't even get in the palace. We don't even want someone to think she got into the palace. This one, they're hanging around in the camp, and the king is looking out the window, and he sees Abraham fondling her, and he gets really upset. He sees Isaac fondling her. He summons Isaac to him and said, she's your wife. Why did you say she was your sister? Third story, same basic theme. Isaac answered, because I thought I might have been killed on her account. I know what he's going to say. Abimelech said, what is this you have done to me? Okay, third time. And so on. But this time, he said, one of my subjects might easily have slept with your wife, and that would have made us all guilty. So there's not even a suspicion here of anything that went wrong here. So from the first cohabitation, to the second rescue by God before anything happened, to the third, not even the Pharaoh or the king is going to do anything. One of my subjects could have done, we'd have all been in hell then. My God, what did you do? Then Abimelech issued this order, whoever touches this man shall be put to death. And Isaac doesn't take gifts from him. Rather, he sows crops, because we don't want him to be benefit from this relationship in this story. So this story is going to change it again. And he reaped 100-fold that year. Oh, wasn't he lucky that year? He got rich in 1 year. In any case, he got rich, and his flocks and herds and servants, and the Philistines began to envy him. End story. I don't have anything more to say about that, but those are three different stories. Two actually turned out to be our Yahwist. One is Elohist. The Elohist is the worst one, by far, worst in terms of narrative style. We do not have a consummate artist writing the Elohist story. We have excuse me for being blunt, I don't have time to be kind. We have basically a consummate rip-off artist who's puritanical and who's worried about the implications of having Abraham shown as someone who sold his wife to Pharaoh or the king. Now, do I think any of this happened? I have no idea. I couldn't possibly say. But you'll find that these writers don't know a lot about Abraham. Or Isaac, for that matter. That's about the only story they tell us about the mature Isaac. It's the same story they told about Abraham. And we've got two versions of that story regarding with Abraham, and the rest of the stuff is from shrines. The rest of the stuff is shrine traditions, genealogies, promises, things like that. But there's very little, now I know it looks like there's a lot, but there's very little substantial information about Abraham in this narrative. One of the stories is a duplicate. Now let's watch. Okay, chapter 13. Abraham returned to the Negev. The Negev is part of both of the stories, with his wife and all he possessed and Lot with him. He's very rich. How he got rich, we don't know. But what's the first thing he does? He goes back up to Bethel, where he'd already been before, where he had invoked the name of Yahweh. Is that where he invoked the name of Yahweh? Yeah, he built the name and invoked the name of Yahweh. Yeah, that's where, so it goes back to where so we know this is in the same tradition. In any case, the idea here is that the land isn't big enough for all their flocks. So these two guys have to separate. Abraham has to go one way, Lot another way. The dispute broke out. The Canaanites, line 8, and the Perizzites were living in the land at that time. These were Canaanite peoples. Look, let's not argue. We are brothers. Well, his nephew anyway. So he looks to the Jordan plain. That was before Abraham destroyed Sodom, before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And it was like a garden, so beautiful. So Lot chose the Jordan River plain for himself. They moved off eastward, and they parted company. And we're going to find out, we're going to lead into the Sodom and Gomorrah story with this. These stories are certainly, they're just Sodom and Gomorrah stories are coming. But that's going to be a nasty story about his neighbors, about their sodomy habits. Now the people of Sodom are vicious men. I'm going to show you that's a tourist guide story anyway. Now the people of Sodom were vicious, great sinners before Yahweh, so he's prepared us for what the problem is down there. And the problem is that they sodomize people. Anyway, they parted company, and we get another promise to Abraham. Looks, he's still at that shrine. Oh, no, this is, again, look all around you, north, south, east, and west. Everything you can see is, I'm giving to your descendants forever. God, what would Yasser Arafat say if he read that? We'd be in a pickle, wouldn't we? Maybe we should take it and read it at the UN. It will make your descendants like the dust on the ground. Men succeed in counting the specks of dust on the ground, they will be able to count your descendants. Well, Hitler made sure that wouldn't be the case. Come travel through the length and the breadth of the land, for I mean to give it to you. So Abraham went with his tents and settled at the oak of Mamre. And this is really Abraham's town, Hebron, south of Jerusalem. Now, my folks, chapter 14. This is, in my personal view, a very old piece of material. Chapter 14, 1 to 16. In fact, I think some of the names in this bit of material have been found in the Ebla texts. Some of the names of the kings in this material have been found in the Ebla texts. That's how old this material is here. And honestly, it reads totally different than anything we've read so far and anything that comes afterwards. Chapter 14, 1 to 16. Looks like, and I think it's true, and I don't have any proof, I'm just saying that's what it looks like. What we would call, in this area of work, a stele. Stele is a stone sort of marker, or I don't know what you call it, stele, with an inscription on it, commemorating something. Usually a narrative of some kind. I did this, I did that, I did this, I'm a great king. I cut off this guy's ears, cut off this guy's head, and I'm worth a lot, and I'm putting up this, like the Gettysburg battlefield monument or something like that. At this spot, such and such, 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 such happened. These things existed in the pre-biblical world. I think what happened, in order to create the Abram character, and that's my own personal view, I don't know if I'm the originator of this theory or I read it, bits of it here and there, I'm not sure. But in any case, it's become more and more clear to me that this is so different than all the rest of the material that it's from an ancient stele, which actually mentions Abram. And from that, these other stories developed. Let's look at this quickly. I'm going to run through it. I assume you have the text in front of you, which is the problem if you don't bring a text, and I can't run through things. Run through this real quick. Look at these names. Nothing like what we've heard so far. We didn't even hear an explanation of how these names got here, who they are, what their genealogies are, nothing. We're just supposed to know who they are. At the time of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elazar, Waron, Bera, king of Sodom, Birshai, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemabar, king of Zeboim. Told you we hear about this Zeboim again. And the king of Bela, that is Zoar. Come on, where do those names all come from? This is really an ancient text. It sounds really different. These that are all banded together in the valley of Siddim. We don't even know where these places are. We have a little note, that is the Salt Sea, but we've never heard of this before. For 12 years they've been under the yoke of Chedar Lamar. The 13th year they revolted, and in the 14th year of Chedar Lamar arrived the kings. This is all new. This is something quite incredible. This is an authentic bit of text from that period. That's what this is. Not storytelling, not someone's recapitulation of the past, a revision of someone else's story. This is a real thing. That's my personal view. Anyway, they defeated Rephaim at Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim at Ham, the Amim in the plain of Kiryat Aim. I don't even think they know where these places are. The Horites in the mountainous districts of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is on the edge of the wilderness. Wheeling around, they came to a spring of judgment, Kadesh. They conquered all the territory of the Amalekites and also the Amorites who lived in the Hazan Tamar. Then the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, Bela, that is Zoar. These were all names in the Yahweh's genealogies, weren't they? These 5, anyway. Marched out and took up battle positions against them in the valley of Siddim, against Chedar Lomar, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Eleazar, 4 kings against 5. Now there were many bitumen wells in the valley of Siddim, that's the Dead Sea, has bitumen, asphalt, whatever you want to call it, black pitch. In their flights, the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fell into them, while the rest took refuge in the mountains. The conquerors seized all the possession of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and made off. They also took Lot, whoever he is, the nephew of Abraham we have here. The editor may have added that. And his possession made off, he was living at Sodom. A survivor came to tell Abram the Hebrew, who was living at the oak of the Amorite Mamre. That's where I think a lot of this material comes from. So Abram is not just any old Abram, he's called Abram the Hebrew. We've never heard him referred to like that. That's very old, probably. That's where we get the Hebrews probably, oh, well, we're descendants of this guy, Abram the Hebrew. The brother of Eshcol and Aner, they were allies of Abram. When Abram heard that his kinsmen had been taken captive, he mustered his supporters, members of his household, from birth numbering 318, led them in pursuit as far as Dan. He and his servants fell on them at night, defeated them, pursuing them as far as Hobath, north of Damascus. He recaptured all their goods, along with his kinsman Lot, and his possessions, together with the women and children. When Abram came back after the defeat of Chedar Lomer and the kings who had been on the side, the king of Sodom came to meet him in the valley of Shabbai, that's the valley of the king. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought bread and wine, and he was a priest of the Most High God, a big episode for Christianity. He pronounced this blessing, and we get Melchizedek's blessing, and so on and so forth. Well, I don't know how much of that is authentic from the stele and how much has been added to. The original may have said I instead of he. It could have been I did this, I did that, I said this, I did that, and then the writer put it in the third person, who knows. But everything in that is very old, that's all I can tell you. How old, you'll have to decide. And I think that's probably the first mention of Abram the Hebrew in history. And I would honestly think as someone in the 1000 BC period found this thing, they said, look, there's our ancestor. There's our ancestor. We can actually, get some stories about him. So we get these, I think, rather silly stories about Abraham saying his wife's his sister and stuff like that, repeated 3 different times. But not really, I mean, they're good stories, we don't forget them, but the point is they're not as, they're not as deeply rooted as this one. It could be any time and place. I'll keep it a quarter of. That's what I'm paid to do. I apologize, but I feel the need to do that. I know you're getting tired, but you stick with me. Okay, so Melchizedek is a big thing for the letter to the Hebrews, and in Christianity, Jesus' priesthood is a priesthood after the order of Melchizedek and so on. It's also in one of the Psalms. In any case, Melchizedek blesses Abraham. And the king of Sodom said to Abraham, give me the people and take the possessions yourself. But Abraham replied to the king of Sodom, I raise my hand in the presence of Yahweh, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. Notice, God, Yahweh is the creator God there. And I told you that Yahweh actually means he who creates. And that's the first time actually that he's been defined as the creator. And I think that that's where his name comes from. He who causes to be. Makes being, the creator. No one thread, not one sandal, so nothing will I take which is yours. You shall not say, I enriched Abraham. That's different from the other stories. For myself, nothing. There's only what men can have eaten, and the share belonging to the men who came with me, Eshcol, Honor, and Mamre. Let them take their share. Okay, so now chapter 15. Another story about Abraham. He has a vision. Abraham, I am your shield. My Lord Yahweh. There's Yahweh God again. No, it isn't Yahweh God. It's Lord. It's Lord. It's Lord. It really is Lord Yahweh. In the regular text, we probably read Lord. In any case, what are you going to give me? See, now this is the promise. I think that he will have descendants. You have given me no descendants. Some man of my household will be my heir. And then I will be laughed at. Look up to heaven. Count the stars if you can. Such will be your descendants. And Abraham put his faith in Yahweh, in the Lord, and it was counted for him as righteousness. That too is a big passage in the New Testament. All of Christianity is based on that. That Abraham's faith, Paul says, is our faith. And that's how we're blessed the way Abraham was blessed, not by the law and so on. So again, he takes things out of this and moves it up 2,500 years later into his theology. The previous promise, 13:15, was, I will make you as the dust of the ground. Now, what's this? 15, where is that, the stars of heaven? What number is that? 15:6?
15:5.
15:5, stars of heaven. And then, so these are basically variations from different tradition lines of promises, usually associated with shrines. That one was 13:15. I'm going to write it over here. 13:15. So, some sacrificing goes on here. I am Yahweh who brought you out of the Ur of the Chaldees. My Lord Yahweh, Abraham says, here I am. I want to inherit things. Give me a heifer and so on. And he describes this sacrifice. So then he falls into a deep sleep. And once again, Yahweh speaks to him, line 13. Yahweh, Abraham, look at this. Know for certain your descendants will be exiles from this land to a land not their own, where they will be slaves and oppressed. But I will pass judgment on that nation that enslaves them. You shall go forth to your fathers in peace. You will be buried at a ripe old age. But in the 4th generation they will come back here. So this is a preview of the Exodus that's already been given Abraham in a vision. Where is this all taking place? What shrine are we at here? Are we at a shrine? Where did he come out to meet him? It's not. It isn't clear. There is no place name associated with this. Anyway, another covenant is made, line 18. To your descendants I give this land from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river. In other words, from the Nile to the Euphrates. no, don't show this to the UN, don't show this to Yasser Arafat, don't show this to Hosni Mubarak, they won't like it. I don't think that it's realistic in any case, but they are talking about the Euphrates River and all the people in between. Well, that's where this Zionism and wishing to go back to the original land, a lot of it comes from. Let's just look at 16 quickly before we leave. I want to do the Hagar Sarah story here, and then we'll go. So Abraham's wife didn't have a child. So now we're in another one of these very colorful stories. Clearly a Yahwist again. And these are unforgettable ones. And they always have a lot of sex in them. This one has some good sex in it too. Listen, you know, Yahweh has kept me from having children. Therefore, take my slave girl, and I will basically have children through her. That was the custom, clearly, that any children your slave had was counted to you. Maybe the American South was like that too, I don't know. Thus after Abraham, they didn't seem to behave like that. Thus after Abraham had lived in the land of Canaan for 10 years, Sarah took Hagar, her Egyptian slave girl, and gave her to Abraham. He went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. You know, in Paul in Galatians, he says that we Christians are the true children of Sarah. The Jews are the children of Hagar. Well, to people who don't read the Old Testament, that'll fly. But anyone who knows the stories of the Old Testament knows the Jews aren't the children of Hagar. According to their view, maybe they are, I don't know. But their view, they aren't. Again, Paul is doing symbolic games between slave and free. And for him in Galatians, Hagar represents slavery, and the Jews are enslaved because they follow Moses. That's what his view is. They're enslaved to the law of Moses. And we Christians, we're free, therefore we're from Sarah because we don't follow the law of Moses. Well, you know, I mean, within the context of the Old Testament, that's really insulting. You can't get much more insulting than that. You know, take the Hebrew genealogies, fool around with them, turn them against the people that there are, condemn their greatest legislature, laugh at him, and ultimately say, we're the descendants of your real mother because we are free of your law. I mean, I don't know what that's worthy of. Frankly, I don't want to get through all of it, but you'd have to be from an outside people to think that that was something that was fair. If you were from the people itself, you would never in a million years consider that a fair thing to do with what people hold precious. You probably wouldn't be able to get away with that under the law of civil rights in the United States in terms of how you presented somebody. But this has been enshrined in our history. In any case, this is what it's going back to, Hagar and Sarah. If you want that chapter in Galatians, it's chapter 4. And you will read something that will make your hair stand on end. In terms of these stories, anyway. Here's this human story. So he goes in unto Hagar, she conceives, and then of course the minute that happens, she gets uppity, if you want to call it that. Sarah counts for nothing in her eyes. So Sarah's upset. Look, she goes in and complains to Abraham. Notice what happened in a situation like this. This is an insult now. May it be on your shoulders. I gave her, you the girl. And now, since she's got a child, I count for nothing in her eyes. See how human this is? Now this is real literature. Great storytelling by someone who knows how to tell a story. And then Sarah said, of course, anyone who's got a wife knows that he could get into this situation, in a situation like this. And this is exactly what his wife would say. And let Yahweh be the judge. Okay, Abraham says, look, I can't deal with this. It's your slave girl. She's at your disposal. He's a coward always in these stories. He doesn't even stick up for the woman that he's gotten pregnant. Treat her as you will. Treat her as you think fit. And accordingly, Sarah treated her so badly that she ran away. I'll leave it there. But the story is not sympathetic to Abraham, not sympathetic to Sarah. The story is actually sympathetic to Hagar, which shows how fair the old storyteller was. He actually has Ishmael at a shrine crying, and an angel goes down to him, saves him, gives him promises and so on, and the narrator shows himself to be sympathetic to Ishmael and Hagar, not the way Sarah and Abraham behaved. So once more, these people are never presented in a totally idealized way. I know you're getting up, but frankly, I usually stop this class early, but the official time of this class is 10 o'clock.